Hello and welcome to BACW, Black Administrators in Child Welfare, Black Tables Talk. And I'm so excited today for our guest that we have with us. I've had the pleasure of meeting her and being a part of some of her organization's activities. Today we have Dr. Zakiya Newland. I'm going to just say, Dr. Newland, welcome, Dr. Newland. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for extending the invitation. I look forward to our time together and engaging in some rich dialogue.
Wonderful. Let's just jump right in. I don't want to take up much of your time, but I know you have some exciting things going on with Black Family Summit, Inc. I was just amazed and encouraged and empowered after leaving your event last year. And I'm so excited about sharing what you do and how you do it and how it came about. But let's start first by just giving me a little background about yourself.
Sure. So I am a social worker by professional background, and I'm originally from New York, the Bronx specifically. And I always like to say we locate ourselves in different aspects of our identity. You can look at me and see that I am Black, I identify as woman. And when you think about regional identity, that also frames who I am. And so it is important for me to say that I am from the Bronx, from a family that grew up in public housing, youngest of three daughters, really looked at the experience of my family as an adult, reflecting back on the fact that we grew up in public housing, but had some very rich family experiences. Two parent household, clearly didn't have economic means, but strength in family connection. My father was like that community father that when he took us to the park, I was the
Gotta
youngest. So
have
I'll
one
say,
of those houses.
yeah. So I say when he
Gotta
took
have
me to the park, everybody in the neighborhood, went to the park, right?
the party house, the party house.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So really just, communal values, family
Yes.
values. Had the benefit of going to Catholic school. I don't know how they paid for it, but they did. I'm sure there was some scholarship funds in there as well. But just really seeing a family being able to be resourceful
That's
when I
wonderful.
think about it, right?
Yes.
And being able to benefit from Catholic school education, moved on from there, found my career and love for the profession of social work, went on to get my bachelor's degree in social work, all of my degrees in social work, consider myself a poster child for the social work
There you
profession.
go. It started
And
with your dad in that community house again.
absolutely, absolutely. A lot of roots of activism, in my family as well, involvement, church, and things like that. So, a journey that had humble beginnings, and I like to continue to center myself in gratitude and humility as I continue on in the work that I do and the person that I've become. So that's a little snapshot about, who I
That's a
am.
great snap, by the
Thank
way,
you.
and very, very in depth and detail about your experience in education. Tell me this: how did you get connected to Black administrators in child welfare? And we've been around for over 50 years. I've only been a part for about 5 or 6 years now, but I'd like to know how you came to know BACW, as we call it.
Yes, thank you so much. So it has been through the connection of Black Family Summit that I've become most connected to Black administrators in child welfare. As a social worker, I kind of journeyed through a range of different Black-led organizations through my career. So years ago, decades ago, I knew the organization existed. I'm a member of National Association of Black Social Workers,
Mhm.
so I knew probably early on in my career that there was the organization Black Administrators in Child Welfare, but didn't have any active engagement with the
Okay.
organization. But fast forward to my involvement with Black Family Summit and this larger network of Black professional organizations, of which Black Administrators in Child Welfare is a member, then that engagement became stronger.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot, and you've done a lot. Um, to just move us forward, and I want to slow it down. By the way, your glasses are everything. I'm
Thank you.
gonna let that go and stay focused. Share with us what Black Family Summit is. Let's just start there.
Yeah, so Black Family Summit is, I believe, this amazing network. The word family sometimes can throw people
Mhm.
because people may think of a service provider, direct service, family and children services. But Black Family Summit is this collective of Black-led organizations that started out in 2005, really with the initial convening of Black professional organizations coming together in response to Hurricane Katrina, and really Minister Louis Farrakhan having a relationship with our organization's founder, Baba Leonard Dunstan. We affectionately know him as Baba Leonard, who at that time, well, he was the previous national president of the National Association of Black Social Workers. And he was also in New York State, the commissioner for the Division for Youth. So children and families is very much, the forefront of his professional agenda. And just seeing the realities of Hurricane Katrina, as well as just having some sensitivities to mobilization and bringing groups of people together for causes. Um, the convening came together on the campus of Howard University to get these organizations to say, how can we work together to strengthen needs of Black families large scale, but also to look at some things that could be done on smaller levels within some of the cities and areas where many of the organizations had chapters. And
Okay.
so it began some initial conversations on how to think about this concept of operational unity and
Mhm.
how to make that concept come alive in some of the work that these organizations were doing, but could be done that much more from a stronger base because they were having some collective work that they were doing together.
Wow, that's a lot and it's wonderful. I want to talk a little more about the operational unity. Tell
Mhm.
me what that looks like. I know I experienced it when I was with your group, but the operational unity for BFS, exactly what does that look like for
Yes.
you as the convener?
Sure. So, I think, it's a lovely concept when you think about it, but the question of, so how does that work exactly, right? How do you
Exactly.
have
How does it work?
organizations with their own mission, with their own purpose, with their own way of operating, come together to make some decisions about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it? And so, Black Family Summit really serves as the hub to do some of that visioning and act and do some of the mobilizing around what that work needs to look like. So, for example, there have been occasions where I'll use New York City as an example with the response to Hurricane Sandy that we had, or Superstorm Sandy that we had. We recognized that there were, of course, communities that were not receiving a level of response from government entities, communities that didn't trust government entities like FEMA and other responsive agents, weren't getting information, didn't trust the information they were getting. And so Black Family Summit convened a meeting and asked organizations that were part of Black Family Summit to come together and to strategize on how we could work within the community to be those trusted messengers, to help them understand that there were resources available to them to spread information, but also to help them deal with some of the realities that they were having and to engage faith-based institutions and other community organizations that were on the ground in the community. And I think that's one of the strengths of Black Family Summit, is that we're able to partner with who are the trusted messengers in the neighborhood. What are some of those, natural leaders, whether they're, faith-based groups, some, store owners, librarians, how can
That
we make some of
community
those
house,
connections? Say again?
that community house that you grew up in.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do we make connections if we don't already have them? Or how do we build on those connections that already exist, right? So Black Family Summit then became the vehicle for organizations like the Association of Black Social Workers, the Association of Black Psychologists, the Black Psychiatrists of the Greater New York and vicinity, our organizations kind of adopting communities in Far Rockaway, Canarsie, Brooklyn, Coney Island, Brooklyn, Far Rockaway is a community in
Mhm.
Queens, and to give that resource lift and assistance. So when I say operational unity, it's the idea that someone kind of gets in, coordinates, mobilizes, gives some resources to the organizations that want to be of support, and really just sets into motion some of the work that needs to happen. And then it happens from this collective work and responsibility principle of Ujima that helps us to do the work and stay connected to the needs in the community.
So the on foot individuals who convene right there in the community, would they ultimately be called chapters, or do they remain in that role as just
Ye Yeah, so they are their independent entities of their organizations,
okay?
right? So Black Family Summit itself doesn't have chapters, but there are local chapters of several of the organizations that are within Black Family Summit. But what you're hitting on is really important, because Black Family Summit has the organizations kind of engaged with them, but the organizations, many of them, have their own local chapters.
Mhm.
So sometimes we're working with the local chapters of said organization, or sometimes the organization is kind of funneling, the message to their local chapters to take on the initiative that they're connected to for Black Family Summit. So it could really go either way, but a lot of times that coordinated response
Mhm.
is coming from Black Family Summit, making some of those connections. And we really recognize that that's so important, and it's such a benefit to community members that we do have reach. And when I say we, I just mean, not Black Family Summit, but our community has reach back into
Yeah.
so many Black-led organizations. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't know, but being able to just have that coordinated effort that comes from whoever takes charge at the time. But
Yeah.
in the cases when Black Family Summit leads the charge to do this level of coordination for a rapid response, or some proactive engagement that we're looking to lead, it really just is beneficial all around.
So I'm glad to hear you say that about the chapters, because BACW is an example, because we do have the chapters. So as an
Mhm.
organization, we spread our wings that way with you all and be able to take it somewhere else to our other chapters. One other question, something you mentioned that I want to just pause on a little bit, and that was about Black leadership, Black professional leadership.
Mhm.
What's your value behind that? I know when I experienced you all again, and I'm going to keep talking about that because it was really life changing for me,
Mhm.
and that is the benefit of gathering Black professional, in most cases with your group, executive leaders. What's the intentionality behind that?
So, the intentionality is so important, right? For us to recognize that um, being able to affirm leadership in organizations is critical. And so for Black Family Summit, while the beginning of the organization came with the presidents of national organizations coming together, they were called into the work that way by our founder. Um, yes, oftentimes, and here's where it can get a little tricky. We don't want it to seem that the relationship is only with the leaders, right? The connection in the relationship is with the organizations. And so we're now in the process of really thinking about, what do those organizational commitments look like? How do we co-create them with our leaders from the organizations, um, and also still maintain those relationships. Leaders transition out of position, and then we have to build relationships with other leaders. But we always want to have that value of affirming the leaders who are in
Yeah.
position, and kind of serving as a way of them feeling a connection to other leaders, them recognizing that there can be this, kind of collective table that we come to dialogue around important issues, and kind of come into counsel one with another around how we'll approach certain issues, or how the work of Black Family Summit can support what's going on in their organization. You were with us at our 2023 retreat. At our 2022 retreat, we had an opportunity to have a sharing session where organizations were talking about their challenges, what was on the horizon for the next year. And we heard from organizations, including BACW, about, what were some of the things that they were working on, what they were challenged by in a particular year. And it was just a great opportunity for people to come together in community to share.
I love that. If you could bullet point exactly what BFS, Black Family Summit, does and who they serve,
Yes.
what are your services that you provide, not just to the leaders maybe, or the organizational perspective of it, but also to individuals?
Right. So at this point, Black Family Summit is at a critical juncture because we are just closing out a 18-month period where we have done a deep dive into our organizational identity. Who are we? Who have we been historically? Who are we looking to be as we go forward? We've dealt with leadership transition, as you well know. We've also looked into understanding more about our products, if you will. What are we offering? How do we communicate that? What is our brand? All of those wonderful things. So the question is timely, and with the pieces of it that we're still building out, but we're at a better point where we're able to answer that. So we are a collective of Black-led and Black-serving organizations. Some do operate on a national level, but we also have interest and involvement from organizations that aren't national Black professional organizations, right? So some that are more grassroots oriented, or some that operate in more local areas. And so we want to make sure that the way we identify who we are is inclusive of those organizations as well. But we see ourselves very much operating as a hub where we are transmitting information that's resource oriented, as well as a hub for communications. And so we do a few things. We have a monthly virtual community gathering where we kind of call that as an opportunity for dialogue and action. So we come together on our monthly sessions. We call them advanced sessions, where we're moving forward aspects of our agenda. So what are we advancing? We're looking at advancing ideas around issues that are impacting our families and communities. So we are right now in a series on innovation that's inspiring us for collective action. So we're looking at issues that are happening in our community. We just had a session that looked at the child welfare system and looking at some of the needs that we have for, community healing and child welfare reform, and looking at innovative approaches as we think about those concepts, right? Nothing new.
Pause there, Dr. Newland.
Yes.
So who's invited? This is a wonderful convening. So who's invited to gatherings like that you have?
Yeah. Sure. So we have that that goes out to our member organizations, but we also ask that it's shared, with those within those networks. And as we come out of our summer break, we're going to be extending that even broader, because we want people who want to engage with BFS to be able to get that information. So I'll share a little later, ways that people can connect with us, to get on our mailing list, to get invited to our community advanced sessions as well. So we do offer those about 9 months or so out of the year. Then we have our annual retreats, which that's an opportunity that's more exclusively for our member organizations, our organizational members. But we are going to be building out individual supporters in ways that people who aren't affiliated with a particular member organization, that they can also be involved with the work of Black Family Summit. I'm excited about our website and the capacity that that has as a resource hub, because as of right now, our website, which is blackfamilysummit.org, it's all spelled out, blackfamilysummit.org,
Yep, there's the
we
support.
have a resources page, and our resource page has our member organizations that are currently active with us, and BACW is on the page, that has
Yay!
of course, that has the website for all of our organizations. So you'll see this beautiful, concise look of the organizations, their logos, the names, their website. And then we're going to be asking our organizations soon to contribute a couple pieces of content that they will curate, that they determine, whether it's a position statement, maybe it's a link to a particular, video, or something that that they want to contribute to the resource page, whatever is determined. One organization, we put a few out there just to show examples. They have a very comprehensive report on climate change because they're a climate justice organization. So, things. It could be a PDF report. It could be a, like I said, a video series link, whatever they determine. And so just imagine how beneficial that can be
Yes,
for anyone
absolutely.
to come to a website, see, let's just say
Get
20
it all there,
organizations,
one spot.
one stop, right?
Oh my
Whether
goodness.
it's, people who are in academia that are looking for certain
Yes,
reports, whether it's new professionals that are looking to engage resources, whether it's seasoned professionals that are looking to just have a hub where they can learn, even if it's persons who are just looking for information
yes,
on, oh, I didn't even know we had this Black professional organization. And now I'm thinking about
right.
career interests that I might have or I want to share with a family member. So we want to be able to have that functionality on our website and communicate that out so people see that as a resource. We'll have other information. We have some therapy directories up there as well
That's
right now,
great.
and we'll put other things up there that will be beneficial. And so those are the types of services that we'll provide in terms of the information that we'll share. And then, of course, event information we'll share out on our website as well.
So I just want to jump in there. One thing you didn't mention that I feel like I learned a little bit about is um, legislation and policy that you
Yes.
all have been engaged in, which a lot of organizations, especially Black community-based organizations, don't have access or the ability to launch out into not just voting, but being a part of legislation and policy changes or engagement with them to just bring awareness to our communities. Say more about that because I did learn that you all have done some great work in reference to that.
Yeah, and thank you, for that because, you're trying to get it all in. So I'm so
You all
glad
do
that
a
you
lot of good things.
allowed me to pause. That has definitely been part of our history, and it's certainly on, in our future of what it is that we are purposed to do. And the legislative awareness is so critical. And listen, we are at a time where we have to be engaged on that level, that political arena, but not just through the behaviors around voting, but being able to be engaged with getting the information so that we
Yes,
are making informed decisions and looking at things that are happening locally and knowing where to go to get information. So much disinformation out there. We want to make sure that people are directed to accurate resources, but not just accurate resources for information, but trusted.
yes,
Right. And so, how can we and other organizations that are affiliated with Black Family Summit serve as resources? And just looking at that list of Black
yes,
organizations in the disciplines that are represented in Black Family Summit and seeing what some of those organizations are doing by way of policy agendas and legislative advocacy and pulling that information together and helping people to understand what
yes,
that is and showing ourselves as a united front, whether it's at the Congressional Black Caucus or in some local areas. I'm in New York, and New York has an association of Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian legislators. They have a big caucus weekend every February, so we're engaging there as well. And just really being able to build those relationships, make sure that there's a level of engagement and advocating. As I'm a social worker, so I'm going to speak on advocacy,
always,
right?
always. Doesn't go away. It does not go away.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so that's good to know. I want to divert just a little bit um, from what we had down to discuss and really talk about how do you see Black Family Summit as addressing these, and they're not new issues in America, but
Right.
specifically those issues that gravely impact Black families and Black children.
Yes, well, you're right. They're not new. And, that in and of itself, is a moment to kind of pause and see what that means in terms of that commentary. One of the things that Black Family Summit does, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to the way we have organized in partnership with other organizations as well, uh, with doing healing circle work, right? And really doing very community oriented, culturally responsive work in community around healing. And, if we're doing work on healing, and it's because harm has been done. And when we look at system level harm, family level harm, individual level harm, whatever way harm comes, we have to really think about our approaches to healing systems.
Wait,
And
pause, Dr. Newland. That's a lot right there. That was a mouthful. And
okay.
system level harms. It's probably the first time I've ever heard it brought together in one phrase.
Mm.
But what is that? What does that look like? And
What
identify
kind?
maybe one thing that is a system level harm that is challenging America as it relates to Black children and families.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so if we look at, we can pick a system
Right.
and think about the way there have been system level harms that have impacted,
Okay.
right? If we look at education, we're talking about the achievement gap.
Great.
Right. If we're
Yeah.
looking at health systems, we're talking about racial disparities, right? And I know whether it was last week or this week, I know Black Maternal
Yes. This
Health
is our
Week,
month.
right?
Yes.
Right, month, right? So we're in that season, right?
Yes.
We're in April. We're also looking at autism awareness. So
Yes.
any of those awareness related themes and months, we see disparities. Right. At one of our it's the mantra of when America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia,
Wow.
right? Yeah, right. That's not mine. Others have said, so it's like that idea. So it's like at any system, criminal justice system,
Yes.
juvenile justice system, right?
Absolutely.
So just really looking at the implicit bias, the systemic
Yes.
racism, all of those matters that are woven into the systems
Oh, that's great.
that we have been impacted by. We, society, not just we Black folks, right?
Mhm.
That have been impacted by, but being able to recognize that implicit in that, in all of the systems that we engage, whether we're working within those systems, whether we're consumers of those
Yeah.
systems, whether we're advocating for change within those systems, that there have been harm has existed in those systems.
Absolutely.
How do we locate ourselves in that harm? And then what's the level of healing that's needed? Right. And then how do we set up that healing ecosystem? And for who? Right.
Yes.
Sometimes that's a healing circle for the staff
Absolutely. Or the board
or
of
the
health.
board. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. To understand, if the board is looking for a certain level of outcomes and they're not understanding why it's taking so long, there might be a healing level conversation that needs to happen. They just engage that.
By all means, yes.
Right.
We have
Right.
to start at the top, right? Okay,
Yes.
that was a
Yeah.
perfect response. It was very, very clear to that system level hurt. I wonder, is there additional with that? Because you covered a lot and I
Yeah,
couldn't.
that's kind of where I was going in terms of just some of the healing work
Yes.
that Black Family Summit is committed to, right? So again, in partnership, with organizations that we have typically aligned with, and new organizations that we're building strategic partnerships with to build out the different ways that we engage in that type of work. And
Wow.
that's a heavy lift. But it's not as heavy when again we lift these principles of
Yes.
collective work and responsibility.
It's that collective work part that
Absolutely.
gets missed most times. Next question. If you had a canvas that you could paint on Black families in America and children, what would that look like?
Mm. I love those kind of, if you had, what would it look like types of questions, right?
We
Because
gotta
it
start
really
with if, right?
because it gives you an opportunity to think creatively, to kind of cast vision. Of course, kind of comes with the perspective of equity. I think, wow, that's such a broad and big question. But really, it boils down to, for me, people having access to what they need in
Mhm.
order to attain what they want, right? And really to be able to think about, we often, kind of try to get people to understand the difference between needs and wants, right? Um, I also think, yes, needs are essential. Have to have,
Yes.
but can we throw some wants in there? Can there be some,
Can we ever
desire?
grow to that point?
Yeah, can
We
I,
go there.
can there, and I don't mean, I want the, the
The base,
materialistic big willie. Yeah, I'm not there, right? Although, there may not be nothing wrong with, some of that, but I'm just saying, you
little
know,
extra here and there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, go
right?
ahead.
I'm just saying the freedom to want,
Yes, that's
right?
good.
Instead of
That's
just
very good.
always just the grind around the needs, right? But can I be
So good.
positioned in
Absolutely.
such a way that I can be free enough to explore my wants, right?
Hmm.
So what does that look like? What
Yeah.
does living life from that vantage point,
Wow.
look like?
That's a, I
Yeah.
don't know. That's, I don't even know where to go with that. I'm trying to imagine it in my head to see what that picture, if it was something on a wall, needs versus wants, that says, I have the freedom, right?
Mm, mm-hmm.
That would be so depictive of what a lot of us do, but especially um, as it relates to Black families
Yeah.
and children. So that is really the line of divide. They never, from my experience over these last 40 years plus of
Mhm.
being working with families and children, Black families and children,
Yeah.
to just even bring up a
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
outside of a basic necessity.
Yeah.
They
It
don't
re-
have freedom.
Yeah. It reminds me sometimes, the freedom of when I see, children, playing, and particularly, like, the freedom and the sassiness sometimes that comes, when Black girls, play.
Yes.
I can remember one time, my niece, I often tell this story about my niece. She was young, 8, maybe she's about 8 years old, and, starting to play double dutch,
Hmm.
and, was just, turning rope. And I went to my sister's house. I said, "Where's she?" She said, "Oh, she's downstairs." So I went downstairs. I found her. She's turning rope. Now, little boy was on his bike, and he rode by and like pulled her hair or something. And she was turning rope. And she kept turning, right? She didn't flinch. She
Wow.
didn't say, "Leave me alone." She kind of like flinched him off, like, "Leave me alone." But now
Mhm.
you know how critical it is when you turn a rope. You can't miss that beat, right? Because
You gotta
somebody
be
jump
rhythmic.
in,
You have to be
and
rhythmic.
they will tell you, your whole identity could shift in a moment if you get the branded as a bad turner, right?
That is
Right. So
so
anyway,
true.
and I'm watching her, and she just whatever, and just leave me alone, and just kept on going. And something about that moment, I looked at her,
Mm.
and I remember saying, "She gonna be all right."
Mhm.
There was like this freedom
Absolutely.
there, right?
Absolutely.
Like no care in the world, everything was good. You know, just having freedom in that moment
That
to
was a
just
great
be
picture, by the way. That was a,
play.
I can picture it. Yes.
Yeah, just to be in place. So it's just like, can we have that freedom at other points in our lives just to
That's
kind
great.
of be, exist, and explore?
Yes.
I want that on a canvas.
I can see you just lay it all out. It's all there. You can do whatever you want to do. Let's talk about this question. I know you're busy, so I don't want to
Uh-huh.
um, leave anything out. But what would you say? And I want to quote this right because I think it's very, very important moving forward for organizations like Black Family Summit as well as BACW. BACW. So, what do you think would be a joint message that we would be sending to systems, institutions, and jurisdictions about the canvases, the needs, the wants of Black families and children at this particular point? And we're in a different era of needs and wants. So I want to play on that straight
Sure.
across the board. That has changed. The dynamic is different, and disparity is just widening.
Yeah, so a joint message. One, I love that idea. I think crafting messages is so, so important. I think we need to do more of that jointly. So we might need to come back into
Yeah,
the huddle to
we'll
actually work
revisit this
on that, right? Let's
part
do it.
two.
Yeah. But I think, crafting that joint message is really about, I don't want to overplay the idea of the resiliency of Black families, because that is critical. But I do want to frame it around the nuanced nature of our families,
Mm,
because
okay.
we have that ability to flex,
Mhm.
right? And not just
Okay.
that code switching. um it's something about the strength of that flex that allows for, particularly in a family sense, to give multiple children in a family what they need, right? And whether it's a single parent, or whether it's two parent family, whatever the configuration of the
Mhm.
parent structure is, whether it's auntie, whether it's grandma, whether it's dad, mom,
Right.
moms, dads, whatever the family structure is, um, being able to recognize that Black families have historically had that nuanced nature to 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 just get it right,
Bounce back.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, and with the appropriate honoring of that understanding, because a lot of times our systems don't honor that understanding, professionals within those systems don't honor that understanding. And that's education, that's child
Yes.
welfare,
Yes.
that's, you name them,
Yes.
health care, all of that. um but being able to, and I'm using the word honor very intentionally, right? It's not just to assess for it or to notice it, to see it, but to give it its due, to
Mm.
honor it. And I think that joint messaging that we could create is about, don't just notice it, but honor it.
Wow. I think that's something really, really intentional that happened at your conference last year for me, is the honoring of the history of Black, not just Black families and children, but Black people,
Yeah,
Black work,
yeah.
making sure that those who have been doing this for 25, 50, 60 plus years are honored and recognized, and our joint ability to bring in those younger individuals to,
Mm,
so that that honoring can really take place concerning the history of all the work and intentionality that has gone into everything that we all do, especially how you all demonstrated it with me there. I'm not going to keep you. I could talk about that part all day long. uh, but tell me, moving forward, you shared some of your upcoming events, but how can others become a part or get engaged with Black Family Summit moving forward?
yes. So thank you again for that. And this has been just great. It,
I'm
it, it,
enjoying
it
this. I can
allows us
see
to
all
just
this.
take a moment to just, step away from, what
Yes,
we're doing, and just
I'm
kind of
doing
think
the
and
work.
talk. So yeah, so thank you again for that. So, well, I would again be remiss if I didn't speak to another way that Black Family Summit is telling our story,
Mhm.
is our documentary, right? So we were able to um, produce a documentary on the history of Black Family Summit, and it does kind of speak to where we've been, but also where we're looking to go in the future. And so you could find that on our website, blackfamilysummit.org, and also YouTube. We just recently created a YouTube page, and so right now that's the solo piece of content. We're going to put some other content up there, but for right now, that's up there by itself. It's a little lonely, but it'll get some company soon.
We're all trying to splurge out on these platforms as they.
Right, right, right. Yeah, really telling that story. And we also are working with students at Morgan State University, my alma mater, from my undergraduate program in the social work department, to help us craft the second part of the BFS story, and really look at our organizational history by looking at some of our documents, and really putting together a bit of our organizational history through another project that we're working on, because we want to be able to tell that story and
Yes.
use that to help bring in a new generation to the work of Black Family Summit. We are looking to build out more functionality on the website. We do that annual retreat, like I said, for our member organizations. We're looking to bring more individual supporters into the work of Black Family Summit. So there is a functionality on the website to learn more about us, to
Okay.
send a message for contact information so you can be added to our email list,
Yeah.
so that people can remain connected to the work that we're doing. And then going forward, a little distance from now, not right now, but we are looking for other ways that we could convene kind of like orientation sessions, maybe
Yeah.
on a quarterly basis,
Mhm.
so that people, based on
Exciting.
where they're coming in as a stakeholder, what
Yeah.
level of stakeholder people are coming in, we can have very specific stakeholder types of orientation meetings with people on a quarterly basis to keep them engaged in the work that we're doing with Black Family Summit and to get their input, because that might frame
Absolutely.
something new for us to do.
Yes, yes. Well, wow. You're doing a lot. I don't know how many new things you could do with what you've shared today, but thank you so much, Dr. Newland, for your time. Thank you for sharing with our audience that we are trying to grow and we really want them to get to know what Black Family Summit is about. Thank you, and I will be in touch.
Yes, thank you
Whoever
so
wants to
much.
join us.
It's
Any
really,
parting
really good.
words? Any parting words?
Um, just, we all have to lift up, the work that we're doing in our organizations. I'm thankful to Black administrators and child welfare and the platform that you have here, trusting that people will come to have a great understanding of the work that you're doing and lifting. It's no slight to be an organization that's 50 plus years old.
Yes.
And that is a really great thing. And we just look forward to continued collaboration. So I'm just really, really pleased for the invitation and look forward to continued working relationships.
Once again, you've been amazing. Thank you for your time and thank you for being with us.
Okay,
Have a
take
good one.
care. Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.